Hi, this is Sherry from the blog OurLifeHomeschooling.com, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I'm going to be talking today about our favorite Thanksgiving read aloud books. These are books that I read to the kids in the days leading up to Thanksgiving. They're just fun family books that talk about bringing in the harvest, about the kinds of foods that we eat during this time of the year. Some books about pilgrims, some on the history of the celebration of Thanksgiving, things that just kind of get us in the spirit of the holiday and ready for that special day on Thursday. If you were following along last week, I did a video and post on the True Thanksgiving Story book list for kids, and I shared in that post all the books that we read to the kids that tell the true Thanksgiving story. So that was a little bit different of a list. I'll link that in this video for you to look at that if you're interested. If you're new to my channel, my name is Sherry. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Nelson. We have 9 incredible children, 1 more on the way. We're excitedly waiting the next arrival of this little one. And I love encouraging other moms in homeschooling. I just know how much encouragement has helped me along the way, so I like to share that with other people. I have 7 books that are our favorite Thanksgiving read-alouds, and I'm going to be sharing those with you. The first book on my list is the book Sleep Tight Farm. This book is by Eugene Doyle. This is an adorable book. It actually doesn't mention Thanksgiving, but it talks about the harvest and what it's like on a farm to bring in all the root vegetables, to just cover the chicken coop to make sure that they're nice and shut in for the winter and that, they're not exposed to the cold air. It talks about chopping wood for the fire and just all the things that we do around a farm, but also just in our homes to prepare for the winter, gathering the harvest. So I think it's great for Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving is a harvest celebration, and they set up their farm stand and they have hot apple cider and just all the foods that are familiar to us this time of year as we're preparing for our meals. In the book, they put to bed all the different parts of the farm. They cover the strawberries, cover the raspberries, cover the hoop house. It's just kind of putting every part of the farm to rest for the winter. The second book is Cranberry Thanksgiving. This is by Wend and Harry Devlin. And this is an adorable story. It's an old story of a grandmother and her granddaughter, and they are preparing for Thanksgiving. They have, the grandmother makes this famous cranberry bread, and she hides the recipe in the dining room behind one of the bricks in the fireplace. And she's a little suspicious of this Mr. Whiskers, who she feels is an unsavory character that hangs around the house, that he is going to steal her famous cranberry bread recipe. That Thanksgiving, they each invite a guest to dinner, and she encourages her granddaughter to invite someone who's poor and lonely. So Thanksgiving Day comes, and both of their guests arrive, grandmother's guests and Maggie's guest, who is the rough and tumble Mr. Whiskers. And grandmother describes him as all whiskers and no soap. So in the end, I don't want to give the story away, but in the end, Mr. Whiskers saves the stolen cranberry recipe, and they all sit down and enjoy a dish of pumpkin pie together by the fire. And this is just a really cute story, one that my kids asked me to read over and over again, one we've always enjoyed. The third book is Sarah Morton's Day, A Day in the Life of a Pilgrim Girl. This book, all the pictures in this book are actual photographs taken from the Plymouth Plantation Historical Museum. It follows Sarah Morton, who was an actual girl that's listed in several journals of this time period. It follows her throughout her day and kind of gives just a little snapshot into the early American life. And I think just reading about it encourages kids to have an appreciation and thankfulness for a lot of the conveniences we have. Sarah has to get up and it's very cold. Her job is to tend the fire, to milk the goats. She makes Indian cornbread. She has to take care of the chickens. You follow her through the day as she recites her lessons to her father. It exposes the kids to an understanding of life during colonial times and some of the hard work that these young children had to do. And hopefully they can have an appreciation for some of the conveniences that they have by reading this book. The next book is a classic Thanksgiving poem, Over the River and Through the Wood. This is an original poem by Lydia Maria Child. It's been put to song. There are 12 verses in it. This book only has 6 of the 12 verses. The illustrations in this book are just really well done. They are woodcuts by Christopher Manson, and they're beautiful. Each page is taking you in the sleigh ride through the woods to grandmother's house, and you just get little snapshots of children playing in the snow and early American life. And then you get to grandmother's house, and there's this huge feast, and everybody has pumpkin pie, of course, at the end. So I like to read this poem and even sing. I have sung the song to the kids just because it's a classic poem, great for them to learn from year to year. So this is a regular for us. The next book is A Turkey for Thanksgiving. This is a cute little story, especially for really young kids. It's a story about a moose family, and Mr. and Mrs. Moose are getting ready for Thanksgiving. They're setting out all the place settings and getting out their candles, and Mrs. Moose decides she really wants a turkey for Thanksgiving because what is Thanksgiving without a turkey? So Mr. Moose runs off and is going on the hunt to find a turkey for his wife. And as he goes all along the way, the animals who've been invited to the feast are asking him, is it dinner time? Is it dinner time? And he says, no, not yet. I have to find a turkey for Mrs. Moose. So they kind of follow him along. Finally, all the animals get to Turkey's house. Turkey is terrified, runs away. They catch him and bring him to the feast, only for him to realize he's been invited as a guest at the feast, not to be part of the feast. And he says he's so much happier to be at the table and not on the table. So little children just get a kick out of this book. And it's just a really cute story. The next book is Sarah Gives Thanks. This is the story, the true story of Sarah Josepha Hale, who is a widowed mother of 5. She and her husband loved reading, loved words. They were very literary, and that's something they shared together. Her husband died, and she has to find a way to support the family. So she decides to use her pen to make money to support her children, and she begins writing. She begins writing articles in a magazine, and eventually she becomes the editress of a ladies' magazine. At this time, Thanksgiving was only celebrated in the New England states. So people in the South didn't even really celebrate it. Some states in the Midwest celebrated it, but it was mainly a New England thing that was close to the area of where the original Pilgrims landed in Massachusetts. She wanted Thanksgiving to be a national holiday. And so she uses her pen to continue making money writing in this magazine. But over time, she writes to several presidents and asks them to make Thanksgiving a national holiday. And it's a really inspiring story because she's so persistent. She writes to 4 presidents in a row. They all turn her down. They don't give her any attention for this, and she just feels so passionate about it. She continues writing to them every Thanksgiving. She always posts articles in her magazine around this time of year about the importance of gathering together as a family and being thankful. Finally, she writes to the 5th president, Abraham Lincoln. This is in the aftermath of the Civil War, so the nation is really torn apart and divided. And Abraham Lincoln gives notice to her letter, and he feels that having a national day of Thanksgiving would be a great way for the nation to heal after this horrible war. So he gives the Thanksgiving Proclamation of 1863 and makes Thanksgiving a national holiday, and finally her dream is realized. So this is not only a great story to tell about the history behind the Thanksgiving celebration, but also to encourage, if you have any kids that like to write, it's inspiring to them to continue writing, to see that they can make a difference in what they write, and that they can even make an income from it, as Sarah did. The last Read Aloud book is not a picture book. This is a short story done by Louisa May Alcott. I have saved the best for last. This is hands down my absolute favorite Thanksgiving read aloud. I read this to my kids. I just discovered it a couple years ago, and ever since I've been reading it to them every year. You can read it in one setting, but I tend to save it for the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we just read it in sections. It's an adorable story of a family with 8 children, Mr. and Mrs. Bassett. They live out on a farm in New England, and they're preparing for Thanksgiving Day. Everything's going great. All the food is just coming along until Mrs. Bassett gets word of her ailing mother, and she has to leave her 8 children at home to care for the house and to continue with all the preparations. So the children are at home, and they really are up for the task. Some of the girls have a couple blunders in the cooking, and there's an unexpected incident with a bear, and things don't go as planned. Some things get ruined, but in the end, Mr. and Mrs. Bassett come home to find Thanksgiving meal all ready, and they're so proud of their children, and they celebrate the Thanksgiving feast together. This is an old story. It is rich in vocabulary. So there are some Old English words that you may have to explain to your kids as you're reading it to them. But just a lovely, lovely story. We enjoy it every year. It's one I definitely recommend that you read to your kids. It's probably geared more towards middle and older kids. But my younger kids also sit in on it, and I think they learn a lot and they enjoy it. So these are our 7 favorite Thanksgiving read aloud books. I hope they can give you some inspiration and some ideas of some things that you'd like to try with your kids. Reading together is a great way to get in the spirit of the holiday and to prepare for Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoyed this. If you're new to my channel, would you please like and subscribe? You can also follow along with me on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Thanks for listening in. Have a great day.